Hola, muy buenas tardes. Oh, hola, muy buenas tardes. Me llamo Dimashi Amable y este es Desahogamiento. Muy bienvenidos hoy. Ah, este es un espacio para soltar lo que llevamos dentro, para entender quiénes somos en esta mezcla constante de mundos. Today, we're diving into something that lives in our very cells, genetics and cross-cultural identity. Para vivir en Minnesota no es solo lidiar con el frío, es navegar una identidad que a menudo se siente como un puente. We are a blend of ancestral codes and local realities. No soy latina, soy italiana para muchos años que pasando, cientos años que pasando, pero tengo un corazón latino porque mis ancestros fue de Italia. Y I'm also Norwegian, which is a local flavor here in Minnesota. ¿Qué significa ser mezclado o ser latino en un estado que históricamente ha sido visto como una llanura blanca en Minnesota? ¿Qué piensas con esta pregunta? Ahora tengo un mensaje. Protege a los tuyos. La abogada Carla Santiago te ayuda con ajustes de estatus, visas y leyes de familia. En Santiago Legal tenemos el conocimiento necesario para reunir a tu familia y defender tus derechos. Haz tu cita hoy a las 612-810-7403. Y ahora, the statistic. So Minnesota in numbers. Let's look at the data because the numbers tell a story of rapid change in this state. En Minnesota, la identidad está evolucionando más rápido de lo que muchos piensan. There's a lot of mixed birth rates here in Minnesota. There's been statistics over the last 10 years since I moved here that cerca de 10 hasta 12 de los nacimientos son de padres de distintas razas. Sin embargo, en Minnesota, los datos de 2024 hasta 2026 muestran que los nacimientos multiraciales han crecido significativamente. Approximately 6.2 of our population in Minnesota is of two or more races, and this is according to the U.S. Census Bureau. And then if you think about the national average, that's just a little bit lower than the national average. So national average is 10 to 12%, but here in Minnesota, we're about 6.2%. Now let's look at a vignette of just our Hispanic and Latinx amigos y vecinos. Aquí es donde se pone interesante. Nationally, Hispanics make up about 20% of the U.S. population. In Minnesota, representamos aproximadamente 6.4 to 6.7 of the total population, around 366,000 people. Aunque ese número parezca menor al promedio nacional, no se dejan engañar. Minnesota's Hispanic labor force participation is one of the highest in the entire country. And todo de este país, Minnesota, es casi la primera estado. We are about 77% of a Hispanic labor force in this state, surpassing the national average of 67%. Estamos aquí, estamos trabajando y estamos creciendo. So let's dive a little deeper here. I have friends and I have friends of friends who are either born in this country as first generation Americans. I have friends who are, they call themselves dreamers and they came here when they were very, very little. And then I also have friends who have married into a Latinx or a Hispanic family. And a veces estas personas say, ni de aquí y ni de allá. Identity is more than just a census check box. It's a mixed genetic, una mezclada. When we talk about mixing genetics, we're talking about the resilience of our ancestors meeting the opportunities of the Midwest. Para muchos de nosotros, nuestro es una mapa de colonización, migración y supervivencia. Genetic testing often reveals a mix of indigenous American, indigenous American, and then European, and then African ancestry for most of the population. But what do you think about who's on the streets of Minneapolis and St. Paul? A veces it feels like speaking Spanglish at the grocery store. We might celebrate Day of the Dead and El Nieve. But there's a tension sometimes that my friends have described as being too Latino for some and then too Americanized for sobrinos, por ejemplo. Es ese desahogo necesario sobre la crisis de identidad que surge cuando tus genes dicen que una cosa y tu entorno otra. But Minnesota is changing. Minnesota está cambiando cada día, cada año. La identidad minnesotana está convirtiendo en una identidad Minnesota multicultural. Our genetics are a mosaic. No somos una sola cosa. Es americano. Es la verdad de la cultura americana para ser una mezcla de otros países. We are the statistics of growth and the lived experience of integration. So I'll just go through some statistics again because I just think it's interesting to bridge from last week where I talked about El Espejo, reflecting on what happened with Operation Metro Surge. And I talked about whether you watched the news or you were the news. And so this week I thought I would bridge into who's in the community, who's out there, who are we protecting, who are we getting to know, who are our friends and neighbors who speak Spanish. And as you heard me say earlier, 77% of our workforce identifies as either Hispanic or Latina. So the Minnesota statistics between 2024 to 2026, it says they classify only as Hispanic, but as we know, Hispanic and Latinx often have some nuances, some cultural differences and nuances based on geographic region y país. It is approximately 6.4 to 6.7%. And then multiracial identity in our state is about 6.2%. However, the Hispanic labor participation is actually 77.5%, which is one of the highest in the entire US. And then foreign-born residents, so personas que el nacimiento es un otro país, is 8.6%. And then las mexicanas son la primera identidad de las culturas de otros países que hablan español en este estado. Y después pienso que es Ecuador y Venezuela. Y a veces en partes de mi trabajo hay personas que piensan es de Ecuador, Venezuela, Mexicana, Colombia y a veces Perú. So let's see here. Yeah, I think that wraps up for the most part what I'd like to talk about today. Please reach out to me, Dumashi Amable on Facebook. I am looking for people to come join me on the radio show soon. And we can talk about different things. We can talk about what it's like to grow up in Minnesota y have sobrinos de otros países que hablan que yo soy una americana, pero mis sobrinos eran de México o Colombia o otros países. Y ¿cuál es la conversación de esto con sobrinos? Or I know I have some friends out there who have kids who are mixed race of Hispanic population and Latinx populations. We'd love to see all of you on here. Well, ahora es para cerrar este episodio de Desahogamiento y hasta la próxima semana. Gracias por tu tiempo hoy.